You want a Mac but you don't know which one is the best for you? Let me guide you in this world. There are a lot of Macs out there. First, we need to distinct laptops and desktop. If you have to travel a lot you will need a laptop, but they are more expensive, so a MacBook Air or Pro, because the original MacBook series is officially dead and obsolete, will give you some problems. If you have only to study, do normal work, or make mid-range graphics operations, take the MacBook Air. It has an M2 or M3 chip and starts by $999 for the 13-inch. M2 that is the perfect one for almost everyone that I mentioned before because has a 8-core CPU and 8-core GPU, 8 GB of RAM and 258 GB of storage. The maxed out Air has an M3 chip, 8-core CPU and 10 for the GPU, a 15-inch screen, 24 GB of RAM, and 2 TB of storage. There are a lot of mid alternatives, but remember that the 15-inch is reserved for the M3 chip, not the M2 that has a 13-inch. And remember also that there aren't internal differences between the 15-inch and the 13-inch like some years ago. And if you have to regularly edit for 1,000 videos and other very difficult tasks, you'll need the MacBook Pro. They start from $1,699 with an M3 chip, 8 cores for the CPU, 10 for the GPU, 8 GB of RAM and 512 for storage, but a 14-inch display. But the chip world here is a lot more complicated because we have the M3, M3 Pro, and the M3 Max. The Max is the most powerful with 16 CPU cores and 40 cores for the GPU. What? And that's not the end because it has got 128 GB of RAM plus 8 TB of storage. That's a monster. But you can always check old models, like M1 MacBook Pros, but not down the Apple Silicon chip because the Intel MacBooks are getting old and obsolete soon. If you want advice for someone who needs a Mac for study, buy the M1 MacBook Pro or Air. If you need something also smaller, you can go with a refurbished or used Mac that is going to cost you less. But if you don't have to travel and you have got a smaller budget, you can go with a desktop Mac. There are a lot of different desktop Macs like the iMac, Mac Mini, Mac Studio, the iMac Pro, and the Mac Pro. If you already have a setup with a keyboard, mouse, and monitor, then go with one of both Mac Mini or Studio. They are very small and powerful, and if you want a comparison, you can imagine the Mac Mini like the MacBook Air and the Studio as the Pro. Mac Mini starts from $600 with an 8-core M2 chip, 8 GB of RAM, and a storage of 258 GB up to $4,399 with a 12-core M2 Pro, 32 GB of RAM, and 8 TB of storage. I think that the Mac Mini is the best Apple computer looking at price and parts because with $750 you can a mouse, keyboard, monitor, and a Mac Mini that is half the price of a MacBook Air with similar specifications, and this is the best Apple computer for students. But returning to the example of someone who also needs to edit videos the best, and if you already have a setup, you can purchase a $129,910 Core M2 Pro Mac Mini. And if you want more, you can get the $4,000 M2 Ultra Mac Studio. And the things that I said about MacBook Air and Pro count also on these two devices. Returning, I mentioned the Mac Pro that you may remember from the memes that he created, and that is a machine only for someone who edits Hollywood films. I'm not joking. Do you want something very powerful, but that will be outdated in a short time? For this type of person, there is the iMac Pro, a 2017 Apple Intel extra-powered iMac. But remember, he's old. So this is the 2024 Apple Mac lineup. Confusing, right? No.